but we were picked out of a sinkhole and deployed 16 hours later with just a lot of money, a lot of ammunition, 16 bodies and guns. No real good tasking, not a very clear picture of what's going on other than media and a intel brief from the MIVD. This is the Military Intelligence Service.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served Warzone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story. I'm so excited to tell you all that we're launching on Patreon today. Thanks to so many of you who signed up in the past couple months to be notified. For those who aren't familiar with Patreon, it's an opportunity to be part of the Combat Story community and join a chat group with myself and other serious fans. When you sign up, you'll get access to a Discord server, which is basically a big chat room, where we'll talk all about Combat Story guests, upcoming episodes, what I'm thinking about my next interviews, some of the questions I'm preparing, the books we're reading, and most importantly, your suggestions to make the show better. I can't wait to see you there. Head over to patreon.com/combatstory to join. And now, back to the show. Today we hear an international combat story from Ray Klaassens, a Dutch special operator in the Commando Corps, or KCT, and former Dutch General Intelligence Service, or AIVD officer, who spent years in combat zones fighting our very same enemies alongside American counterparts. Ray comes from very humble origins and the other side of the canal, as he likes to say, overcoming so much to reach the pinnacle of intelligence and military units. Both KCT and AIVD, if you ask any American who served alongside them, including myself, are elite units that many of us would happily go downrange with. Since leaving the service, Ray overcame even greater odds to create his own company, Triangular Group, that provides de-risking and intelligence services for clients globally. I hope you enjoy this international combat story from humble roots to true success in military, intel, and business as much as I did. Ray, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time to share your story with us today.
Thanks a lot, Ryan.
Yeah, we haven't had anybody from the Netherlands on the show before. I'm really excited. I've spent some time with folks from the Netherlands, and I'm really excited to introduce you and this world to some of our listeners. And I wanted to start out with where we're filming from with you in what I believe is a country house tied to a Triangular Group. And I was hoping you could share a little bit more from just what I read about it online.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing place, actually. We're here for a bit over a year now, and I'm in the former the pig house. So a lot of pigs used to stay here. Now they put me and my partner in it. So, but it's refurbished. There is a bar. There are a lot of good bourbons and whiskey and on the shelf. This in a rural area. We have a farmhouse that's 300 years old. It has a lot of history, even from the Second World War. The Germans had their headquarters here. They guarded the railway from Roosendaal to Bergen op Zoom, as it is called, and from here they fought the Brits. So there was a lot of history in the house, and even in the neighbors, they still don't want to come here, as there is too much cruelty happened. And so it's a bit it's a remarkable place. It's beautiful. We have 3 buildings. There's a a building with classrooms, and we keep our office in the big farmhouse, which is right behind me. But it's an extraordinary place, and we're very happy here to run our family, actually, instead of a business.
And I mean, technically, you have a business that's run out of there, and that's Triangular Group, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Perfect. Triangular Group is based here. It's two firms: Triangular Group Intelligence and Triangular Group Academy. So we have a fixed payroll workforce of 20 people, and a flexible workforce of up to 150. So those are contractors. Many of them are deployed at the Ministry of Defense, and it's doubling each year. So it's really a growth market for us, and and I think we're doing a good job as we are leading the market here. Yeah.
That's great. And I know, as we'll get into, you've got the background on both the military and the intel side, which is where this comes from, and the
Exactly.
expertise.
Exactly.
So I typically start out our shows trying to get into the origin story of our guests to figure out how they grew up and if there was any inkling at a young age that they would one day be kicking in doors on objectives, the way that a lot of you end up finding yourself later. But could you help kind of illuminate what it's like growing up in the Netherlands as a kid?
Yeah, well, myself, I was born in 1973, and at that time, I think the country had 12 million people, mainly Dutch people. There were some immigrants from Turkey, Morocco, and also Indonesia, but that was pretty much it. And it was a small majority. But I grew up in an environment, let's say, that was mainly white people, and they are. It was in an area there was not much money. My parents, they were hardworking people. They have buses. They were never buses. So being a bus, as I was like a commander in the special forces, was something very strange actually in my family. Was not accepted easily as well. I had the luck that I was born with brains that I could go to the military academy. Being a soldier would have been accepted, but becoming an officer was something like, okay, this is something that they really needed to get used to.
Why is that?
Yeah, it was it's this typical, like in you have these areas where people are mostly the labor for the factories, for example, the people who are doing my father, he was looking for the right word, but a craftsman when it comes to paving roads, working from 7 to 6, and well, working all the time. My mother was cleaning houses, and this is what it was. They had just a job and nothing more than that. No ambition to get the best out of their, let's say, capacity. Didn't have any education, because with 12 years and 13 years they went to work. They come from big families, like with 7, 8, 9 siblings, so to speak. And yeah, so this was the norm actually in the area, and all my friends had the same parents. But at the other side of the canal, where I was living in the southeast of the country, there were the rich people. There were the owners of the factories. Those had large houses and big cars, etc., etc. So it was a division between rich and poor.
Yeah,
and that actually colored my life in the early years as well. Yeah.
So many questions here. I want to come back to the idea of it's okay to be a soldier, but maybe not an officer. So I'll table that for just a moment. But I want to just touch on, as you're growing up there, what are you doing when you're 10, 11, 12 in the Netherlands, in the poor side of the canal, as you mentioned it?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of stuff is a kid doing?
If my parents were looking for me, I was outside. So I was not in, I was outside. I was playing soccer. I was in the woods. This country, we don't have a lot of bushes. There is no jungle here. There was not a lot of wildlife, but still in the bit there was I with my friends, and we were always outside looking for adventures, looking for something new to discover actually. So this discovering nature brought me to my, let's say, my later career. Always curious of where's the adventure, where's the kick in things, and yeah, that's my driver of fun. It has been, and probably it will always be. Yeah. And I was 11 years old. I had just a sister and 2 younger brothers. They were just when I was 11, they were 0 and 1. So we had like a split family from the same parents, but 4 kids in a very small house, very familiar with sharing what was there. Holidays, they were not very logical every year, but there was a lot of love. It was a warm family. So actually, I'm very satisfied with what I had, because I knew that if you want something, you need to work very hard for it. There is nothing speaks for itself in life. And I was raised quite strict. So there are rules. time is time. We have dinner at 5, so you're at home. If not, well, you find, well, especially my mother, she, yeah, for example, in the neighborhood, there were a lot of kids luring with a little bit of small criminal acts, like stealing and etc. And she was so, well, probably even scared that I was connected to these people. So I got some restrictions on how, with who I could play, etc. But this boxing me in made me want to explore. So I was a kid that lied quite a lot. I lied quite a lot to my parents, and now I have one of my core values is honesty. So there was a real connection with them boxing me in and me trying to get out, because the adventure is there where I was not allowed to go from my parents, for example.
Yeah,
quite. But still, I look back on yeah, in a very, well, I had a good youth, if you know what I mean.
yeah. How about today, where you're clearly successful, as you just described? I mean, up to 200 people supporting work that you created. You're living in the Netherlands. You're supporting people all over the world. How do your parents see that now? I'm not sure if they're still around, Ray, so apologies if I overstepped there.
They are, and I mentioned a couple of minutes ago about the fact that being a soldier, that's good. Being an officer, that's something that they at least say, okay, what's this? Is he becoming an officer now? But at the end of the day, when I went to military academy and now running a business, they are very proud. But I took on the junction another road than my siblings did. They stayed on the same stamp, if you know what I mean, like in a very small area. And that's where they have their friends, their working life. But I was more the type of exploring. I'm the eldest at home, and really looking for, I did believe that the world is not just the city that I grew up in. And for them, this is the center of the universe. And, but they are very proud. Actually, my father, he is working now with me. So he keeps the garden clean. He's a real hard worker. There's a lot of fun. He's loved by all the employees here. But for me, it's like a gift from heaven, having him so close with me, as we didn't have the strongest tie with each other, because we didn't find the time to spend well, time enough actually with each other. And now he's here 2 days a week. And he sleeps here in the farmhouse behind me, and he's at 7 o'clock in the morning. He's like soaking wet from the rain, but he's still doing the job. And actually, the similarities are there. And well, happy me there. Yeah,
that's cool. So, and can we talk just a little bit more about the officer versus soldier side? Did your parents view it as kind of like, oh, he's not where he's supposed to be if he's an officer, that's for rich people, not for where we came from?
Yeah, and probably that's my it happens in my mind, of course. My reflection on let's say the dynamics at home at the time. For example, I went to military academy not just because I was dreaming as a kid about becoming a soldier, but I was preventing my parents from spending a lot of money to go to study, because I would like to take care of their wallets and say, okay, the government will pay for me if I go to the academy or go to the police academy, for example. And the driver was actually something different than a dream to become a soldier, or sorry, to become an officer. And in a way, it's a bit, what is it? A bit, well, not so healthy thought of a young guy. You should go for your dreams instead of thinking about the wallet of your parents. And I think if they hear this, they will feel a bit guilty there without any reason. But this is something that was in my mind. And once I started at the military academy, I wasn't that type of soldier. I really needed to get used to the mechanics at the army, or, you know, being so strict and the hierarchy there, and well, also becoming a leader or a chief of people. I needed to learn to eat with cutlery. How do you call it?
Cutlery. Silverware.
Like this is the and you know how it works on military academies. These are the gentleman club.
Yeah.
They have the etiquettes.
Yeah, etiquette. Yep.
Have the etiquette there, and there was me coming in from this, well, poorer side of the canal. Different clothes, different pronunciation of words, a little bit of a dialect there.
Really?
Quite a challenge. And I had a fight in myself, and I needed to study. But I am very happy that I went to that process, because I really learned. I learned much more in that area than I learned in special forces training about being well, resilient, and yeah.
In one of the things I really love about the U.S. military, and I assume it's the same for what you're describing, but you know, there are people who go through our military academies. There are other ways to make it into the officer corps and different ways to become even a soldier. But I think one of the great things is it levels the playing field. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, where you came from,
Exactly.
who your parents were. Everybody really starts fresh, and it's all about merit from that point on. Is it similar in the Dutch services?
It is actually, but still coming from a different angle in your own mind. It doesn't per se work like that, because the people that are entering the same, let's say, this, how do you call this, the same elementary training, they have their backgrounds. They look different. They speak different. They know how to eat with knife and fork.
Yeah.
So it is, in one way, it's in your face, and at the other hand, it levels the playing field. For example, my companion, Onno is my partner in the business. He pretty much run the same career as I did, also from Intel and also Special Forces. But his father, for example, is a judge, and his mother is quite reputable in the art scene. A different background.
Yeah.
And he reflects to this in a different way, but he would like to have, he wants to level the playing field. My background doesn't count. So now, being many years further down the road, I don't get that feeling of being different. And I see it as a gift that, okay, this is where my strength and my inner belief comes from. And at the time, I was very proud of being one of the poor side of the canal as well. I was the street guy, the one who knew how to fight for his rights, and all these things. So it adds up.
Yeah.
But it was a struggle in a way.
What can you talk us through what it's like to become an officer in the Dutch military? So you go to the academy. How long is that? Is it kind of like our West Point or Naval Academy, 4 years, and then you're off? Or is it more like Sandhurst, which we see from the UK side?
Yeah, that's pretty much the same. The exchange programs with Sandhurst, for example, and West Point are there for a couple of people. For me, you have now, it's all modernized. But in the time that I was there, it took 4 years from starting to becoming an officer, a second lieutenant, let's say the first rank in lieutenant. And there was pretty much 6 months of military training. So learning how to take care of yourself in the field with a bit of tactics, but a little bit of shooting, a little bit of all these fieldcraft things. Then there was a study for, I think, 24 months, which is more like, what was it? A business management training. So all the basic stuff actually to graduate for a bachelor, for example. And then there is a task specific training. I was part of the engineer corps. So I first started as an engineer. So it was a quite technical training of building bridges, paving roads, and doing some technical stuff, and also the more armored engineer stuff and the air mobile units. And that was a concluding part of leading in combat. So more like the platoon commander, doing the briefings, doing the mission analysis, etc. And altogether, it was about 4 years. And then you have your starting position. For me, it was being a lieutenant, platoon commander at a construction platoon, so the technical part of engineering, which was a good learning school, but quite boring actually. It's building, you're building the barracks and doing the electricity, and it was more like a planning function than that you are commanding anything, and it's far to do from action or battle or whatsoever. It's more in the rear. We were always in the rear, and I knew from the beginning that that was not my place to be in the rear. So I would like to go a little bit more to the front. So after that, I went to university. That was part of the military academy, but it was outsourced to one of the technical universities.
Okay.
And then you got a curriculum of a couple of, it took us almost 2 years with mathematics and applied sciences, etc. And you needed to do a thesis, and well, it was quite a tough study actually, but you were not graduated. It took another 2 years to become to get your universal grade. I didn't finish that one, was not obliged to. So I wanted to start and to go to the field, and I went to the Air Mobile Brigade, which is in the Netherlands. It consists of 3 battalions, and they are specialized in helicopter operations. And there was still the engineer, the engineer company there. Yeah.
But you were closer. You were closer to the front.
A little bit closer, but even this is the Netherlands. Huh? We are not. It's not like the UK or the US that we are in every conflict. There is a presence. Yeah. So we were training for whatever we were training for. 2 years of not even a single deployment. Still not even a very exciting training. And I was. My responsibility was to advise battalion commanders on how to best use his engineer capacity. So I was there next to a lieutenant colonel talking about his plan. This was my job. I was, how can I escape from this position? This is crazy. I got too much energy, too much testosterone, too much drive, and I'm killed here in a battalion staff in planning sessions. Being 27, I need to switch. And that's where I decided to step over to infantry in order to, and simply only for that, opt for the qualification course of the Special Forces. And well, as everywhere, it is not a guarantee that you will make it. If you want it, well, that's 90%. And I really wanted it. And I knew why. I needed something else in my life. And otherwise, probably MOD was nothing for me anymore. Yeah. Because I don't want to spend the time being a technical guy in an engineer corps. I would have switched to something else. So I just
can I ask you something, Ray, just real quick? When you were assigned to the engineer corps, is it like, I don't know the process, but did you get to pick, or were you just slotted in that and you had no say? What was that event like when you found out that was your initial career path?
Yeah, so you may have some preferences, and you could say, I would like to go there. And if it matches, they will do their best to put you there. There is not a guarantee. And often it's your second or third choice that will pop up. The more, if you grow in years, like in, I would say this, if you grow through the years, then your say will be a bit more, has more impact. But yeah, you'll just put in a position actually.
So you didn't really have a choice in that. That was kind of
not really.
Yeah.
They'll discuss with you, and if possible, then they put you there. But...
Okay, got it. And the other thing I wanted to say just before we dive into your time with the commandos and special forces was, I think I take this for granted. We work so closely with y'all, with the Dutch. I mean, since 9/11 for sure, but and I know we're talking a little pre 9/11 here. When I was at flight school in the Army, there was a Dutch crew there with us, like training with us. Actually, they drove around in this like bright orange van, and they would drive all over the US. Whenever there was like a break, they would go out to Arizona, like California, all the way across the country. Like, so we were real close with them. We fought so close with y'all in combat in so many places. So I don't know if people listening really understand that. And I think I take it for granted just because I was in that environment. So anyway, very close partners. You were talking about getting into special forces. And I think, is that KCT? Is that what we call it?
Yeah. Corps Commando Troepen. It's in Dutch, KCT, Dutch Army Special Forces. We have also naval special forces called Maritime SOF, or commandos. And commandos actually, the unit is, how do you call it? Is initialized in 42, so in the Second World War. And it originates from armored infantry. They got trained in Scotland.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a statue and a castle. It's Achnacarry is called the place. There's a lot of history there. Number 2 Dutch troop is actually the unit of the first commandos, and they were inserted in the Netherlands when they were freed. So the training was in Scotland and the insertion was in our own country.
Wow.
There are a lot of stories, and it's actually a lot of bravery there as well. Yeah,
that's really cool. And so could you help us understand, is KCT closer to our version of like Green Berets? Is it more direct action, like a Ranger or Delta type force?
No, it's more towards your Special Forces battalion, so the Green Berets. The exchange trainings are also with Delta Force and also with HRT of the FBI. The Rangers actually, I think the concept that they have here is now the Ranger concept is that you have Special Forces, you have Delta, and the Ranger supports Delta. So Air Mobile Brigade here supports KCT. They have a dedicated battalion for that. So they are more soft equipped. They understand, they speak the same languages, they do the same training. They are co-located now in the same place. But it's quite a new concept. And they're in the middle of let's say developing the whole thing. But KCT, I think it's most similar to the Green Berets.
And what's the training pipeline like for that? How grueling is it, and how long does it take?
Yeah, so it starts with you need, well, at this time, because of the lack of people, actually they suffer really from people running away for all kinds of reasons. We'll come to that later, I think. But the point here is that they now recruit also civilians. They tend to avoid that because there are so many people that just won't make it because they can't fit into the system. They need to be a military guy first and then build some experience in another unit and then join Special Forces. But they now provide the option to join as a jeans guy, as we tend to call them, someone, and then they come in. They have a general military training, just basic training. It takes 18 weeks, so that's becoming a soldier. And then there is a training that's called the pre-course. And the pre-course, they will test you if you have the capacity mentally, but also crafts-wise, if that's a good word, and obviously physically, if the stamina are right, if you fix if you can test the physical staminas. And that takes 8 weeks. And from there is 8 weeks Commando course, selection course, actually. There you qualify for being a commando. And that's the hardest part. So that's really where people drop out. In my time, it was 14 weeks. And I reflect on this as the best time actually of my career, is really forming, but developing your character, but also the fun and the connection with the people, and especially the people that remain obviously to the end. It's like making a diamond. It's so well tense actually, and there's a lot of love in between the people, because they had the same enemy, which was a program or the cater or whatsoever, and those memories are forever. So that happens in those 14 weeks. The last, and now it's 8 weeks, and the last week, 2 weeks actually, is what they call final exercise. It's called the, let's say, exhaustion phase. So then typical name, but it's really, I think it's a 200-kilometer march actually, split up in different elements like speed marching, individual map reading, rowing, but all kinds of fatiguing ways to get from A to B. And then there is the how did we say, the entrance in the barracks, and all the, from there you're a commando actually, and the barracks will be issued. It's yeah, but then still you're just commando, you're nothing. You know that yes,
yeah,
okay,
you just start.
Your new colleagues find that you have the right character to continue. That's it. You haven't done any climbing, any free falling, any tactics, any combat, nothing. That starts from there, and that takes up to 14 months to become a special forces operator. So then you're a commando who can be brought into special operations. And those 14 weeks is called it's called VCO. It's like the commando training, the prolonged commando training, specialized commando training, something like that. And that's where all the techniques are in.
Is the training the same for officers and soldiers?
Yes, different from Air Mobile Brigade, for example. There you have an officer education training from 7 weeks, and there is a soldier training, a corporal training, and it takes 28 weeks. So that's different. It's a different, they blend in together at some point, but it's just a week or 2 weeks. But here, myself, I was a red beret guy from the engineer corps, blending in with jeans guys, with military guys, with infantry guys, and we're all the same. The playing field was really leveled there. I had the responsibility and the job assignment of being the leader, but really like primus inter pares from within the team. And actually that is what I like most in leading a team as well. If you need to step up as a chief, do so, take the responsibility if necessary. But if there is no need to show up, please blend in and make sure that you work as hard as the rest. And that's, yeah, but it's the same. It's exactly the same training with different with different roles, of course, but the training is the same.
Yeah, I was just speaking to a former SEAL Team 6 DevGru guy who we interviewed the other day, and he has a company now that does leadership development. And one of the things we talked about was, he describes it as shared adversity. And just as you described, like 8 weeks of people just going through the same pain with the same enemy, which I had not thought of as the program, but it makes total sense. And it's really hard to replicate that in the private sector, right? But it's so pronounced and important to who we become in the military. So it's funny to hear you describe it that way.
Yeah.
So as you come out of the training, if I saw correctly, I think doing research for this, you move from the conventional or the Air Mobile Brigade over to Special Forces right around 2001, kind of that 9/11 timeframe.
Exactly.
What was it like in the Netherlands for y'all on 9/11? Like, what was the atmosphere there? Because we have obviously in the US, it has a very specific connotation.
But as everyone probably on this planet, we all knew where we were on 9/11. And I was in the pre-course. I was sitting in a bush in a laying up point. And then we got interrupted, like, guys, there is something happening in the world. We cut off the training for a couple of hours. And we would like to brief you what's going on, as this is massive news and important for your careers as well. That was shocking in a way, and but strange, and also until that point it was still East-West thinking. There was nothing going on. It's Cold War and Yugoslavia. That was actually our latest experience, and now we didn't foresee what was going to happen, and the deployment to Afghanistan or Iraq was far from being real. But from that point, our commando training, which started 3-4 weeks after that point, was all, even the scenarios that they developed, was all in the setting of the Taliban.
Wow,
Al-Qaeda,
they changed the training that quickly. That's great.
Yeah, so probably not what they would like to see, as no one knew it. We were like it's quite a crystal ball. We didn't know what to expect. But they knew there was something was going on. And the first stories of deployments in my commando training, the first unit in 2001 went to Kabul after your CIA guys and other guys were already there. But it was quite quick that we stepped up as well. So the unit that I joined firstly, 105 Commando Company, they were deployed as the first people in Kandahar from the Dutch. And so for us, this was a real deal. Something is changing now. And what highly interesting. Couldn't be in a better, same as now, Ukraine. People who, my son is now joining the army, and this is my world. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Okay. So, so you're in training as 9/11 happens. All of this is going on. You go through that long training pipeline. You come out. Where are you assigned to first for this?
You mean like in the...
As a commander, like what's your first assignment as you see Afghanistan and Iraq in the background? Where are you first assigned as your initial leadership position?
Yeah, I was... so how it's organized is that there was a commando company. I think it's eight teams of 8 people, and I was, and let's say the team leaders, they were officers, and one of the team leaders, one of four team leaders was also the platoon commander. So that you have 2 positions actually. That was my first assignment. So I became a team leader and a platoon leader in this unit, and I got a let's say a specialization like counterterrorism. So when I just qualified for being a special forces commando, I went directly into the training for a counterterrorism unit, and that was the so it was even a more extended period of training that took me, I think, 3 months or so. And from that point onwards, I was one of the counterterrorism platoons. But still discovering what it should look like in areas like Afghanistan, because we were thinking in a black way, as we tend to call it, like in a SWAT team, with SWAT equipment, with SWAT procedures, with SWAT mindset, you know, taking a Snickers and a Mars and a little bit of water and let's hit the door. But in areas like the remote areas, well, probably you should militarize those concepts. And that later on, that became my profession. So developing the system of a, let's say, of an arrest operation or a hostage rescue operation. What is the system where it takes place in? So how do regular maneuver elements and, for example, yours, how do you integrate Apache or 3D capacity in your concept of operations, and how does that help the guy at the door? How do you integrate sniper elements, etc.? So that was actually my the last phase, obviously, but I was
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you take us then, Ray, now that we have kind of this setting in mind, could you take us to the first time you're maybe downrange? I think you mentioned Ivory Coast as one of these events that you took part in, and just talk us through what it was like from your perspective.
Yeah, so I was in this unit, and at some point, and it's quite funny, we had all kinds of LRP exercises, long range patrol exercises, still. And then from this LRP operations, we needed to do direct action. So it's more like in the beginning, you need to plan. Okay, we need to what is it? We need to do some recce. Close target recce's, but also the I'm looking for the right word now, but the demolishing, for example, of a surface to air missile, for example, or
kind of destroying something in.
Yeah, so it was quite a lot of planning, and then those exercises were quite demanding when it comes to not much sleep, long walks, infiltration was hard, digging. We stayed, you know, below surface. Well, a lot of discipline was involved, but also quite fatiguing exercises. And this one was as we tend to call it, a regimental-led exercise. Was like a qualification to get through if you have this qualification, you can go to Afghanistan, like a check from the regiment. And then I can recall it like yesterday. I was there sitting on the surface with my team, and we had a couple of these sinkholes, pots, how we call it, like observation posts actually, but really well organized. A couple of them in that exercise, and at some point I received a message from in the HF radio that okay, this is a non-exercise message, and they pronounced my first name. Said Ray, which is quite not done. Ray, please quit everything that you're doing now. You need to go to the pickup point ASAP. In at a certain time, there will be a Chinook picking you guys up, and there is a serious reason for this. You'll be briefed later, something like that. And in everything, normally we would think this is part of the exercise. They would like to check flexibility, but then it would have smelled different. And now it smelled really like, well, this is something urgent here. So let's do a job, fit in, decamouflage everything, and make sure that the Chinook can pick us up. From that point onwards, 20 hours later, we were with 16 people in Abidjan, in Ivory Coast. So in that 16 hours, we were already a bit like we had too few sleep, like just a couple of hours. We were like with blisters and scratches, and we suffered a bit as we needed, as it goes that way. But this was a team with 16 people that need to be inserted into, a serious conflict actually. Because in Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, there was a civil war going on actually. The Islamists from the north went to the south. There was a lot of turbulence in the road. The youth elements, they are robbing armories. A lot of drugged people trying to, look after experts and try to kill as many experts as they could to get some attention in the media. It was like a Wild West type of scenario. And in those 16 hours, we got briefed, like, this is your area of insertion. Typically not Dutch. This is not what happens all the time here. Actually, never. But we were picked out of a sinkhole and deployed 16 hours later with just a lot of money, a lot of ammunition, 16 bodies and guns. No real good tasking. Not a very clear picture of what's going on other than media and a intel brief from the MIVD. This is the Military Intelligence Service. And
Ray, sorry, was this your team that you were being inserted with, or just who you happened to be training with at the time?
No, there was exactly two of my squads, like two of my teams, and the half of the team stayed in the Netherlands, so with 16 people. And I was not the let's say I was not the commander or second in charge, as it's not a company commander. I think the second in command of the company went with us to, let's say, for overarching view and to liaise with foreign affairs, etc. So, but on the ground, the commanding on the ground was pretty much the responsibility that I took with him. In fact, we did it together. So we flew into Abidjan with a KDC-10. Something like there were no rights of landing. There was an airport that was abandoned. We were completely blind, no information on what was going on. So we landed in the strip. As far as we could see, we saw no one, and there was no deload capacity. So we pulled a rope out of the plane, and firstly, like with a rope, we went to the platform, and everyone afterwards as well. And then we were there, like, and now what are we going to do? We were looking for an ambassador. The ambassador and his family were having the responsibility of keeping the Dutch presence up as long as they could. But until the call of this is too dangerous, now you need to be evacuated. And this was actually our responsibility, guiding the ambassador as long as possible and then evacuate him if necessary. But his colleagues from Germany and Belgium, there was raping going on. There were people stabbed by gangs. So there was this, it was not a war, but it was a lot of criminal activities, and you don't know where the enemy was. It's just like a very uncertain situation, and just with 16 people in hired cars, what could we do actually? Yeah, we could fend ourselves off and make sure that we got back, but it was always this, how do you say, this glooming danger everywhere. And we were not there on our own. The Americans were there, the Spain, the Germans, so everyone was in the same situation. As it escalated that quick, that everyone was there blind and trying to save their, let's say, their stakes in country. And what I did with my colleague is that we tried to build a liaison network as soon as we could, so that we have with your country and with a couple of other, I think we were 6 or 7. They have this, let's say, we say vangnet in Dutch, but if something goes wrong, you can always rely on your partners for evacuation, for air capacity, for et cetera, but it was not organized top down as it is usually. It was not an operation. It was just a couple of cowboys on the ground trying to arrange it themselves and make sure that it was bottom up arranged, which is has a lot of, there's a lot of fun, and the work actually it's great to do it like this if everything goes right. We didn't get any casualties there. And we have a couple of days of protecting him, and then there was the call to really evacuate the embassy, and they do this destruction of all the documents. So a lot of making sure that the Dutch inhabitants were not compromised, and then protecting the residence of the ambassador for the last night, and that was something quite exciting, because 8 people, my commander with 8 went with the ambassador and his staff to the French airfield. There was a package of 5 or 6 cars guarded by the French helos, and they just guided the guys from one roundabout to the other, because there were thousands and thousands of people on the street. And if you run into these people, well, then you're in the headlines, I think. We would have never survived such a massive attack of people who are angry on everything that is not African. So there was just like, okay, next stop right. And if they missed the right one, then it would have been a massacre. And it was very, how do you say this, tense for those guys as well. And we remained, myself with 7 other people, we remained at the residence, protecting some crypto, radio, and some things that need to be demobilized in a later stage. And the only thing we had was a reinforced residence and sniper positions, and looking to streets where people were aiming for robbery with many people. So if they just run over, well, probably we could have held position for a couple of hours, but that would have been the end of the day as well. So this feeling was what quality operation, like always this glooming, tense threat, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. It went all very smooth. In the meantime, there was a Dutch vessel training in the Caribbean, in the Canary Islands, near to Spain and Morocco. And they were retasked with a platoon or company of Marines in order to back us up if needed. That call was made by us, like, this is something too tricky, too dangerous. And there was an escape plan, but at the end of the day, all the contingencies were unnecessary. We could just stick to the main plan, and then we took out everyone who was there. So yeah, still I have. Is it here? No, it's not here. I have this message where they took me out of the sinkhole. This message, I got it printed out. It's in the office here, and it says something about the urgency in the text is like quite funny actually. Everyone sees it like, this is not so professional, but you see urgency.
What was the team's feeling about getting tasked for that operation? Was it one of this will be interesting, this is what we signed up for, or was it more like, oh, now we can't go to Afghanistan, like we got to go and do this?
Yeah, that's funny. This was 2004, if I'm right. So Afghanistan was already up for quite a time. When we came back, I think a couple of months, 2 months afterwards, we went to Afghanistan, or a bit longer, but something like that. so no, that was not the feeling that we were missing the real deal because of this. I think everyone would have liked to be there, as it was a bit of an extraordinary non-combatant evacuation operation, something that is not foreseeable. It is just at once it's there, it's exciting. And when we were at the briefing in those 16 hours of preparation, it was this stomach feeling that you have, like, okay, everything was on fire, people, like that in the streets, and like, okay, this is the next couple of days is where we will be in. How does it feel? How does it smell? What can we do? Is this responsible, putting 16 people that less prepared into such an area? But I think that is where also this exploring young boy comes in, and we all have that type of nature. Yeah, this is what we signed up for, and let's go.
And we did. I don't think we touched on it, but you had spent time in Bosnia, right, prior to this?
Yeah.
So this wasn't your first time downrange necessarily.
No, I think the third or fourth. Yeah.
Okay.
First one was in Bosnia. I was there for 2 rather short terms, and it was a part of the engineering, an engineering assignment. We needed to develop for reasons of efficiency, I think, but a shelter type of function, so like a bunker, combined with a well, what is it? Like a bar, actually, like having some free time. You should be able to have a drink, and there should be a bar in it, and this was called a barker. But
like a bar bunker.
I run away. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it was. So I developed it like with a couple of colleagues, and then we built it. And I went back for a couple more of those projects. But yes, no, so, not the happiest time of my career.
So I think what I wanted to ask here was when you have that 16-hour transition and you're getting called for this kind of unknown mission.
Yeah.
Did you take any time to like talk to your parents? Hey, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going down range. No. Or were you not allowed to say anything?
No, not allowed. So it's actually that it was, everything was, well, very boxed in and not able to talk. We were escorted from the barracks to the airport. No one was there. I think they got a letter or a message, or someone liaised to the families from, okay, there is an operation going on and they'll be back rather soon. Can take a week or 2 or 3 weeks, but not longer than that. Something like that. It took us 3 weeks out from day 1 to day 14 or so. But the operation on the ground was just 4 or 5, nothing more than that. Quite intense, but not. Wow. If I look back and say, okay, what was so remarkable here is the team spirit, but also leadership, actually. So being that fatigued and having so few hours of sleep from the start, but also in the operation itself, like, what is responsible if we have sniper position on top and you look at your colleague, he's really not able to be, nothing sharpness, nothing was there anymore. Is this a special operation, or is this something that we should do differently in the future? So we took those lessons as well, and they did quite a lot of NEOs afterwards. This was the first one, and I'm pretty sure that they took a lot of lessons. And my commander at that time, he became the regimental commander as well, and he's a very experienced commander officer, and he took those lessons specifically, and he actually developed the concept of NEO for the entire army. Yeah, but it was a great time. Yeah.
And Ray, NEO is non-combatant evacuation ops, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Right. Just for people who are listening.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And then you said you come back, and then eventually you and your teams end up down in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Yeah. Shortly, well, in 2005, I think that we were there. It was in Kandahar. First time I was in Afghanistan was in Kabul. That was more like a, what was it? Like engaging with the local community in order to get some information on what's going on. That was in 2002. Quite a nice deployment.
In 2002, you were there?
In 2002, I was there as well. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Early.
yeah, 2002 in Kabul with actually the entire company, and I was running my own team at that time. It was just more team insertion and doing some area recce's and engaging with the Maliks and the mullahs, and that was pretty much it. But we had one funny thing there is that at some point we ran into this drunk city eldest, and he had an unbelievable story of there is a huge mass grave in the mountains here, and we'd like to show it to you. Well, it's not pretty much our responsibility, not so interested. They say, you should see this. This is something from the earlier wars, and but we were thinking about, is this a setup, or they weren't really keen on teams like ours. And then we went into this into this mountain, and there was really like a lot of military stuff from other armies being left, and bodies, and skeletons, of course. And that was quite strange, that just in a mountain that you cross by every day 10 times, and then you just go into that single hole, and then you're in this huge hall of, well, it's a pretty horrific scene. And we made a call there to inform our headquarters in The Hague, and it's plotted out. There's a little bit of sensitivity behind it, probably not worth. Well, I'm not able to share it here, but we got complimented in a great way, and it's just a simple conversation with a drunken guy brought us to a very funny mission in the end as well. So yeah.
How about if you think, obviously without getting into details, but in the leadership role that you were in Afghanistan, and how fluid that environment is, can you think about one of the operations or missions where it was maybe more concerning for you, like you didn't have the intel you needed, you were worried you were going into a bad spot? How did you approach that without getting into the sensitive details?
Yeah, there's also actually in that specific first assignment to Afghanistan, three, let's say, full moons in a row, I should say. So the moon was high in the sky. A IED exploded on a certain route, and all with casualties all the time. So casualties from the Dutch, I think from the Danish or the Germans. Some people got killed. And the specific thing is that on the same road, nothing happened except when there was full moon. So we thought, okay, there's a rhythm. Someone has clear view, then sees better things or whatsoever. So it was decided by SOCOM, I guess, that probably it is good to have some special recce there and take it under observation for a couple of weeks or months probably. And my team, unit actually was assigned to bring that special recce forward, and myself, I was the commanding of the, let's say, the direct action team. I was the commander of that team. So we were in like a rest position, being able to be there in 5 minutes, but we were in a laying up point, and we were very of disbelief, like, this ain't gonna bring you nothing. It's like waste of time, bullshit. What are we doing here?
Sit here and watch a road. Yeah,
exactly. And nothing happened for days, and then full moon again. So we were there, full moon, and then one of the observation posts came with a call. Someone is jumping in a rock in a hole in the mountains. Someone is climbing up, and it was exactly the same point as where the 3 IEDs were ignited and exploded in previous attacks. So then we were all like knife sharp. Jesus, this is pretty good intel then, if we're here and someone is running up. But the observation post saw a guy with a couple of bags and in the dark, in the night, and he went up. And probably we thought the full moon, from there he can see exactly what's going on in the spot where he has this explosive device. So the plan came in that the assault teams needed to clear that cave actually, so and arrest the guy or shoot him if he's about to do something. But the only way we could approach was around the IEDs where they probably were. So we didn't have the intel. There was no no footage, nothing there. Just us, well, passing through a quite difficult and dangerous area and finding someone in a cave. Well, the guy survived. He was not shot. He was arrested and handed over to the right guys. There was no IED exploded. But this was something rather tricky. Is this the best option to go in, and can we smoke them out? Can we do different things? Like, why are we passing things that we say, okay, 3 times in a row, people died. Now we know that someone is there. Now we see that he is entering it in full moon. Probably there will be an IED over there. But well, different opportunity was, let's say, a different contingency. I would say this, a different decision was made, and all good afterwards. But it's always afterwards.
How hard was it being the leader on that? I would imagine you got guys who are like, come on, boss, why are we doing this? This is dumb. And how do you keep them engaged and like, yeah, we just got to do it?
Yeah, and I think that we had that on different missions in that same assignment. But here it was like, okay, finally something is happening. And that feeling of finally something is happening is dangerous for rational thinking. Even myself, finally something is happening. Okay, let's, and then the rationale of other options is not even on the table. We just went and didn't discuss. And afterwards, when we saw the footage and the tactical questioning of the guy came in, and he has his explanations why he was there. The tricky thing then is that leadership, not per se myself, but leadership in general, that you're willing to steer towards, this is the guilty guy. But he was just there, you know, in the wrong spot, in the wrong place, in the wrong time. And the tactical questioning did not reveal the answers of keeping him longer under arrest actually than 48 hours. I don't know what the Afghans are doing with him, because and that's something that ethically, yeah, you could our decisions actually made that this guy was brought to the Afghans. And well, I think in this stage, being where I am now in life, I would have done this differently, I think. But excitement at that time takes over. Having some value while being in Afghanistan and not driving rounds to the next Malik or next village or whatsoever makes you make different decisions. And this is small work. This is small things. Later, years later, the real operations came in. But at this time, we were really figuring out what is our role and responsibilities, and then you're looking for meaningful insertions. Okay, this might be one, you know, look, talking to such a drunk guy that we ran into. Is this something that you should do in a mature operation? No. Why? We're not putting why. There's no intel meaning in anything that we're doing here. But it's also looking for something to be meaningful. And I think that's well, quite human of thinking that way. And we all want to be like, we look to you guys, for example, like, could we have such operations? And at some point in time, they really occurred, but not at that time.
You know, after talking to several special ops, tier 1, tier 2 folks from the US military who saw time from like 2002 onwards in Afghanistan and Iraq, they talk about the evolution of and the learning process of just doing direct action and on the objective, and how badly they worked together initially and then how good they got later on. Did you see a similar evolution as you guys were going through ops there, since you were there from the beginning?
Yeah, well, in a different pace, I think, and our starting point was different. Well, this is typically the Netherlands, and I think a lot of smaller Western countries. We follow the bigger countries that we are aligned with. We follow the UK or the Germans, or sometimes France in Africa, or we follow the US. But we have a different starting point. We have different assets. We are always the below lying party. Our interdependency is different, and we all want the same thing because we have the same testosterone running through our bodies. We have the same.
For sure.
Yeah. And that is, if I reflect on my SF career, I would say wrong time bracket in my life. I should have been there 6-7 years later, and I've seen different things. The other end is that I'm not. I don't feel pity. It's not that I miss anything. I can still learn a lot from my colleagues. I took a role in educating people and training people at our training wing. Later on, I went to General Intelligence Service. And my learning curve is is a different accent, actually. And it's not per se the kinetic part of fighting, but it's more in the intel gathering and it's different. But still, yeah, my photo book misses a page and I would like to have it, but it's not there, and that's okay.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And actually, this is a great point for us to transition then. Why, just for people who don't know, you spent many years with the Intel Services. Why did you make that change when you did?
Yeah. So I was in 2009. I left Special Forces. There was another deployment to Lebanon. It was also preparation of a non-combatant evacuation operation. And then I went to a training wing, actually developing a concept of integrating arrest techniques in a more military concept. And I was stepping up for a company commander at the time. Like, that was my next move. But then in my private life, things happened. I got divorced. I got a new girlfriend. Her husband died rather recently at that time. And being a company commander, I cannot do these things for 50%. I'm all in, I'm fully committed, and that's my job, and actually it's my life, and my partner should follow with me the whole time. And you know how this works. 9 months of a year, you're not at home, or at least they can count on you. So I say, okay, this is something, I'm now in this T-junction. Am I going to spoil a new relationship and damage my kids probably even more than I've done already? Or do I make a different choice? Because I don't want to be this 50% company commander, and you have them, but not me. So then at that point, I decided to stay in the operational environment. But then if I make it switch, then I would like to de-green myself, getting out of the army in a civil, what is it? The civil community. Being operational, you can do this in Secret Service, the AIVD, which is the General Secret Service in the Netherlands. But this was not being someone from Special Forces, you don't qualify for being an intel officer. I didn't know that at that time. I thought, okay, I can do pretty much everything. So, well, hire me. That was different. So I needed to test and needed to do all different things with communication and social skills, and which, if you are in this silo of being an army guy, and then you need to relate to scientists or youth on the street or nuclear, whatever. Yes, that's a new challenge. And actually that challenge, knowing that I had a really big blind spot for myself on that area, made me want to fill in that blind spot. I would like to be good in the work of running networks in order to get the best intel. So that was my new challenge, and I decided to swap to AIVD.
What was the blind spot? What do you mean by that? Because Ray, I would imagine with what you did in Special Forces, like finding this drunk guy and having him show you this kind of really important landmark that people hadn't seen before, kind of shows that you can run up against different people. What did you perceive as the blind spot?
Yeah, but that's funny, because that worked quite well. I was there dressed up in Army Green with Army Green fellows, very homogeneous homogeneous structure, coming in with a mandate. I was there. I was mandated to ask you questions, and obviously with social skills and drinking tea. But this is quite easy job if you are there with this task. It becomes a bit more difficult if you need to do this with a scientist who doesn't like people who are homogeneous or very strict, and that you need to test the waters first, how to build rapport with people that are not within your bandwidth of your social skills.
So true. Yeah.
I would say this is my bandwidth when I was an army commander, and I was very good at it. I think I was a likable commander, like knowing when to step up, not afraid to make decisions, but also I knew my place if it's not needed. I could easily manage it by being in the background. But this is only in this bandwidth of my communication skills. And now I went to where this was needed. But I thought that I was this. So my blind spot is actually the whole side of everything that was my comfort zone. And with some very simple exercises in just a test case, they find out that this is there's a lot to learn for this guy. And I was very happy of getting this evaluation, because now I know that, okay, it's not a done deal. I'm the one who needs to perform here, and probably it's not good enough at this stage.
And I will say, you had mentioned before, as you described AIVD as a secret service, and I know exactly what you mean, but just for Americans, like, we have the Secret Service, which is different here. Like, AIVD is the Dutch CIA, and an incredible service. So it's an intel service. We have, as people hear a Secret Service, I don't want them to think of our Secret Service. It's very much like CIA in that regards. What do you see as some of the traits that you brought with you from the military that translated very well over to the intel side?
Yeah, so I actually had two occupations in the intel side. The first one was I was the handler, agent handler, mainly in the Middle East, and topics that were very relevant for the European Union at that time, but also for your country, and we had a lot of partnerships there. So that was the first one. The second one was more operational capacity, so building up, now let's say obtaining information through different means, different assets, not just human, but well, everything you can think of, how to obtain intel abroad. We was quite sensitive at that time. It was new, something that needed to be developed. People needed to be selected and trained, and concepts were not there. Everything was grassroots, liaising with agencies that were far further down the road than we. So it's a lot of picking cherries everywhere, and then developing our own concept. So actually, this is a candy store, and I think what I was good at is structuring such a concept, making decisions, not aiming for it at the 10 points, but better having 7 points tomorrow and continue than always try to perform in the best way possible, because we needed to have the momentum all the time. And that requires some leadership, and it requires leadership to convince the people inside the office that, we're piloting now a project. Don't evaluate every single step. Give us a mandate, the trust, and don't bother us actually. And I think that with the nature of being special forces, you have some credits there, and they trust you, and they know that you're not making stupid mistakes, and that they know that you come back if you need to report things that are importantly changing or whatsoever. So I think I had a lot of acceptance in this project, and we made in a swift way huge steps, and we did quite some funny operations, and yeah, it actually was. Once I told to a friend of mine that special forces is one thing. You get an assignment from the government because they decide to insert or to cooperate with a different country, and this is something. It's a clear framework where you're working in. The work is dangerous. It's fun. It's challenging, exciting. But when it comes to intelligence work, sometimes with such a unit as the AIVD, if the country has no solution, they won't go to special forces. If they have no solution, but the solution is needed tomorrow, they come to such a unit. And if you then you're there the right time in the office, and it's always on Friday afternoon,
That's so
And
true.
you're there, and they find you, and they have by the ear and say, "Okay, we have a problem, and you need to solve it." Well, I enjoyed it so much. It's that's the fun thing there. And it's less organized, it's less structured, but I feel I go very well in these less structured and organized environments, and this is different than the Army, Ministry of Defense.
Man, this is so funny. Your timeline is very similar to mine. You spent more time pre 9/11. I came into the military right at 9/11 and then got out in 09 and then found my way to CIA. And I had a very similar experience to what you're describing and really enjoyed it. Like even you talking about this makes me think back to like how much I enjoyed that work. I just love it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious though, because I went through this. You must have been a little bit older than the entry level class, I would imagine, going into AIVD. Like a lot of our folks were young, right out of college, and I felt like an old guy. Was it like that for you going through that training?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's true. They were all these graduated academic students coming in, very smart. Not that I'm stupid, but they're much smarter than I was. I had a different skill set. I went off the paved road, as we tend to call it in the Netherlands. And they haven't seen anything. They're smart, and their communication and their social skills were good. Otherwise, they haven't been there. But a lot of them end up in analyst work or in desk work, and a few of them who were the more, I would say, probably the bolder guys. They went to acquisition, if you know what I mean, like handling, and. But then again, organizing an operation is something different. You can be a very good handler and get the best information possible, or task, or assign the best operations. But it's different than assembling an operation with different cultures, different nations, and making the unbelievable possible by thinking smart and swift on the feet. It's a fun work.
It really is. And I know you can't get into anything sensitive, so not trying to, but you described the shared adversity, the pain of going through the special forces training. Did you find something similar going through AIVD training, where tense environment putting you through different problem sets, or was it not quite the same as your SF time?
I think when it comes to character, I feel more like a commando than an IO. Is more like a commander than an intelligence officer, but that's just because of my nature of, let's say, the things that are found important in such a unit. Trust, loyalty, hard work, all these things. But I think you can apply these to such an environment as an intelligence environment as well. But then you stand out. Not everyone is like that. They are mostly office guys. They are quite clergy. And I think that the energy from such a unit as Special Forces brings new dynamics in such a team. And that was what happened. But it costs more energy than it should, because at first it is a bit threatening. It's different. They don't like it. It demands also different behavior from them. But after a certain amount of time, you see that the system actually adapts a bit to the functionality of an SF team. And I think I enjoyed that really much. Well, you had a different question, but this is something I would like to remark as well.
Yeah.
And your question, for me, I graduated, in Special Forces, I graduated as best man, which I'm still proud of.
Dang, yeah.
Not per se of having this title, because that's just a thing, but the fact that the cater or your instructors, but also the people that you're working with, label this as the most socialized, most, let's say, thinking behind the primary process, trying to bind and connect people, making sure that we elevate the entire team to the next level. That was something that is that goes along with being winning such a title, so to speak. And I think that element of being there, this is what drives me also in the intelligence officers training. So that it's about trying to socialize, trying to get the fun into the system. Where's the humor here? Can we, all these things? And it was a hard training, but not it was not fatiguing. It was challenging in different ways. And there were also exciting elements in that training, like conduct after capture is different in a IO setting than in an SF setting, and it's both very valuable for your thinking about the stuff as well, and having difficult sources, for example, and also in the role play that they would like to train you how to. Well, let's put it that way: the training in special forces, if they build you a scenario, then you have the scenario, and this is the scenario. So you run in, you know where the enemy pops up, you know where the parachute will fall, the area is this, and there's the heli, and it picks you up. You can 3 months in advance, it will be depicted, and it will unroll exactly like they planned it. In the training for an intelligence officer is, okay, it's you, it's a source, and the battle is up to you. And we don't know where it ends. It doesn't matter, but it's up to your decisions. And you need to explain them, and if we understand them, then you qualify. And actually, I find this a very mature way of training. And I would say that many SF teams can also learn from how mature you can
100%. Yeah, that's so true. So this is a great transition point then. So you have this military background, conventional SF, you do AIVD, premier service in the world. And then you decide to exit and start up Triangular Group. Where did that come from?
Yeah, that comes from a combination of frustration and ambition. So that's it's a good mix, I think. Frustration because here we go again. It's just the Netherlands. I knew that our capacity was like sky high, but the willingness to insert and to operate the concepts that we have was rather low. A lot of, let's say, decision-making processes, they took like months for something that in my current position, it took 2 WhatsApp messages. Shall we do this? Yes, we will do this. And I was so sick and tired of these layers of management, of people who have not ever been one single minute on the road. And they talk about if they are, well, Mr. Know-it-all. But that's the frustration part. So I say, okay, but I am the one who's frustrated. This is the system. So if you don't like it, then you should get out of it. And my partner had actually the same experiences. He was a chief of station actually in Afghanistan and in the Horn of Africa in total for 4 years for the military intelligence service. Completely different responsibilities. But we had every now and then these coffee breaks and breakfast appointments together. So we shared our experiences, and we also always had the idea of if something pops up, a challenge that we can do this commercially, so provide better information to de-risk the decision making, then we should probably quit with our current positions and go commercial and build up a company. And that is what happened in 2014, just with an idea. If I look back, it was a bit gambling actually, because I had mortgage, I had a girlfriend, 4 kids, he had 2 kids, mortgage, and at some point salary stopped. With a lot of balls and a lot of energy, we just said, okay, let's do it. We just do it. And in the special forces here, they have this adagium, the saying, it's nun kaut nun kam, meaning it's now or never. So if you doubt, you will never do it. Just do it and face and deal with the challenges that come as a result. So yeah, we got ourselves fired, and we had a paper and an idea and nothing there, and a bit of a loan in order to get over the first 6 months. And then we get a first assignment in Angola, in Southwest Africa. It was a large fraud scheme that actually damaged the reputation of an oil and gas provider, a service partner for them. And there was corruption and local involvement, and they needed to understand better what was going on in order to bring a new public relations statement actually. And they needed intel in order to get the best the best version of that. So we had 1 year of work with a team of 6 people, a lot of revenue actually, for us, it was like, whoa, we should have done this earlier. And if this is the game, then we are like billionaires in 10 years. But it was just a dream. Afterwards, project gone. Then the company was just a project. No one called us. We didn't do any acquisition. There was no marketing. So it went very quickly down the drain. And we were at that time with a third partner, and we broke up actually, because what do you say, if times are getting worse, then these small cracks become big cracks, and at the end of the day, you can't hold it together. So me and my partner, we moved on, and yeah, from there actually it started. We say 2014 and the project in Angola, but the company actually started a bit later. Because of this was just a project. We think it was a company. It's like learning by doing, actually. But okay, we're far more professional, and we've seen the things that we needed to see in order to come here. But yeah, it was very challenging.
What was the opportunity that presented itself, or that you captured the second time around?
It was we were part of an alliance, a European intelligence alliance of commercial partners, pretty much the same as we were the smallest at the time, I think, because we were just started. And there was the funder of it was a big French private intelligence company. And he heard about us in a way through, well, in the network. And then they visited us and invited us to be part of their network. Against a fee and some obligations, and they said, "Okay, let's do it. Probably this is the way forward," and that was the way forward. Well, you know that in world of intelligence, on your own, you're nothing. You need your partners, you need your access, you need your clients, and from there it started actually. So they brought us quite a good set of interesting projects in sub-Saharan Africa, and in the Maghreb, and in the Levant, and in Pakistan, and in the Balkans. And it was all about understanding the flow of tobacco smuggle, and not per se the tobacco itself, but also let's say the infrastructure that provides. Because if you know how the tobacco goes, then you know how the people go, the money go, the weapons go, the drugs go, because it's the same infrastructure that they use, more or less. And the profit of it is not just economic crime, it is also heavy crime, and it's funding of terrorism. So there was the link with agencies. There was a link with, well, in all kinds of nations. They were interested in the information that we got, because we knew we were good at this. We know how to get people attracted, interested, trusted, and we know how to ask the right questions, and we're not afraid of putting some smart schemes into it in order to maneuver the system a bit, in order to get in control and make sure that the line becomes our line. Without going into detail, but if you have that position without people knowing it, then you're the chief. And then you know who is who, where is it, what is the bank account, what is the amount, the volume, etc., etc. So multiple clients were interested there, and this is actually what brought us to the next level. And it took us 2 years with different projects in the countries that I just mentioned, with all kind of trusted partners. And we only made one mistake actually, and that's why it ended. We overestimated ourselves in Pakistan. We get a bit overconfidence, if that's the right word, because what we did in the other, we were, well, quite successful and very satisfied clients, but we didn't succeed there in Pakistan in the same way. And that is where we that was actually the final project in that thing. But we could step up to something different, and we had quite, well, you know, if you work 2 years in this way, then then you really talk about running a company with the people. And well, there was money to invest and do things that make sense. Yeah.
Did how hard was it for you after 2014, when you come out of this great environment in Angola, this great opportunity, and then things kind of, as you said, decline, small cracks become big holes. And in between that time when you're in your low point before you come back together and have this next opportunity, how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, it's an uncertain time. And so how are we dealing with that? If there is no job, if there's no one is ringing, then we should look for the client ourselves. So if we're at the office, then we're at the wrong place, because clients are not at our office. So we should be on the streets, on conferences and abroad. Yes, that's called investment, and pay no salary to yourself, or at least the bare minimum, which I found, well, that's my background. I find it very easy. We need to work hard for this. There is no luxury. Well,
yeah,
and I'm very confident with that. And so it's not that I panicked, but I was always talking about the oxygen in the bottles. People are talking about what is the turnover for this year, and no, it's oxygen in the bottles. We are breathing, and we're not putting in new oxygen, and we have 6 weeks left. So this is where we broke up with our partner, because he was thinking in if he listens to this, Dan, sorry, just mentioning it here, but we were thinking in let's say we need to pay the bills of tomorrow, and obviously I'm also I like strategic thinking, and where should we be in 2 years, and what is the big next goal. But if we can't pay the bills tomorrow, we have not the right to exist. So our first, let's say our first priority should be tomorrow, and that's meaning if we need to sell a simple due diligence investigation for 6,000 euros, then is that what we're going to do? Because that gives us a bit of oxygen, and stop wasting our time with all these long arrows and concepts and difficult thinking. Yeah. That's why we broke up, actually. And he's doing very well. He's running his own company now, and very professional, and wish him all the best of luck. There is no harm, but yeah, didn't work together.
Got it. And then, so today there's 2 lines of effort then at Triangular Group, right? You got the Intel side and the Academy, I think.
Yes, that's how we call it. Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah, where is it going today then? Just so people can see this if they want to engage.
Yeah, so we are still active in the intelligence. We had really some very interesting projects, and we have them still. We're also supporting litigation cases, which I found actually the let's say those are the projects that we run after. Now, if anyone is listening there, call us. If you can convince a judge that your party has the best case, then you win the case. So if you have the best information and you can falsify your counterparts information, then you have a business model, because and for certain cases, it's about a lot of money, and the investment is just a single percentage of that. And and for us, we can apply all our expertise in such a case, from witness protection to gathering information, to do the analysis, to set up, let's say, phony things in order to distract, without going into details. But this is something that you win cases with, and we have seen it. And this is interesting within the law. And if you need to have some permits there, you hire the right persons, the right private investigators. But Intel is something, it's just knowledge. It doesn't prove for the judge. It's not proof for the judge, but it's proof for settling, because, well, just display what you have, and you have different conversations, and it can be in a very nice way.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So I'll get you out of here in just a second, Ray. There are a couple questions I like to ask everybody about their time in service, and this will include for you, I think, your time in the military and AIVD. So first one I like to ask everybody, was there anything that you carried with you into combat that you felt like you had to have on you that had sentimental value, maybe a good luck charm, or something that somebody had given you that meant something to you?
Nice question. My first deployment in Bosnia, my sister gave me a good luck charm, like this charm, the angel of, well, such a very small puppet. And I carried it, not because a belief or whatsoever, but more for respect for her. So that was one thing. Other than that, it's just it's more the inner feeling. I was being abroad. I was busy with home as well. Obviously, just when time allowed it. But I'm a type of guy. I can miss my family. I'm not just when I'm gone, I'm gone. And when I'm gone, I still think of home, and it's intangible, but that's what's in the mind.
I like it. I haven't heard that one before. That's good. And then just last question, the many years you spent in uniform, the times you've been deployed, sacrifice away from the family and with AIVD, as you look back on that time, would you go back and do it again?
Exactly the same. There is no single thing that well, probably I would delay it 5 years so that my my deployments were a bit more excited. On the other hand, I'm very happy now. I know my friends, quite a couple of them suffer from PTSD. Quite a couple of them lost friends, like being there themselves. So probably that is something that I'm safe from. Probably I should be blessed, but it's still the young exploring guy that is also interested in how would it have felt.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thanks very much for the time, Ray. This is so much fun. We'll have links so people can find Triangular Group, find you, and connect where it makes sense. And thank you for being our first Dutch counterpart to come on here and talk about what it's like.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ryan, for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
Great being here.
Our first comment comes from YouTube, from EFOD, and it says, I look forward to all of your interviews. Very thorough, and contrary to similar formats on YouTube, you sincerely listen to your guests speak and do not make it about you. This was a great one. And this was related to the Bill Ostlund interview, which I completely agree. That's gotten some really interesting feedback. I think people really appreciated Bill's humble, quiet, servant leadership. I think it really came through in that interview. People have really seemed to enjoy it. So thank you for leaving that. And thank you for the kind words. It means a lot. And then our second comment today is also from YouTube. It's from Arthur Pearson. And he says, it's about the interview with my dad, Ed Fugit. And he says, Ryan, as a Vietnam vet, I think you've done a great job of bringing the human face to the conflict that did much to divide our country. As your dad said, there are many parallels to the operation in Afghanistan. That is the truth. Keep up the great work. Thanks very much, Arthur, for the comment and for your service and whatever you did in Vietnam. And yeah, that was a special one for me with my old man. So glad you liked it as well. Stay safe, everyone.